Hello everyone, and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's mostly pretty good, maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and should remain in the depths of hell. Now, sorry this video wasn't uploaded originally on Monday. It's just that I had a lot of, I was just really caught up with a whole bunch of family events, so really wasn't able to make any content for the first few days this week. So I thought, you know what, screw it. I'll just post the first two episodes of this series on the Friday. And then, starting next week, we're going to do the Monday and Friday schedule. So, just want to put that out real quick. Sorry this video took a little bit to get uploaded. Um, but the next video should be like the right schedule because it was supposed to be uploaded on a Friday. So, that's what I'm saying at the beginning of this video. So, sorry this video is late, but at least it's out. So, as I said at the end of the Cars 3 video, I said that I was going to do a certain giant monster series that I I kind of wanted to do for a while, but I just never really had much motivation to try and do it. But now that since I have the entire original series, I thought, you know what, might as well do it now instead of postponing it till later. And plus, I had a big chunk of episodes that I was like, what am I going to do for the season? And I thought, you know what, screw it, let's just do it. So, as you guys can tell by the title and the thumbnail, today we're going to be starting off the Gamera Marathon. Now, I want to stress this very clearly that I'm not doing all of the Gamera films as of now. I'm not doing every single one that's been released. I'm only doing the first 8 films, commonly known as the Showa era films, which consisted of films that were released between 1965 and 1980. There so far has been technically 3 different eras in terms of Gamera films. There's been the Showa era, which is the series I'm going to be covering the next few weeks. There is the Heisei era, which is comprised of 3 different films, and then we have the Millennium era, which only consists of 1 film, and that's Gamera the Brave. And the Heisei era consists of, the first one was called, I believe it was called Guardian of the Universe. I know the third one was called Revenge of Iris, and I forgot what the second one was called, but yeah, I think I know the first one was released in 95, and then 96, and then 99. So basically from the mid to late 90s, that's when the Heisei era was released, and then 2006 was Gamera the Brave. But I'm only going to be tackling the Showa era films this week, for the next few weeks. So, like I said, that's consistent of 1965 through 1980. And like I said, I didn't really want to do them because originally, when I first thought of doing these reviews, I only had the first volume of the original Gamera films. But now I have both volumes, so I thought, you know what, might as well do them at some point. So yeah, this was the only volume that I had for a while, which contains Gamera the Giant Monster, Gamera vs. Barugun, Gamera vs. Gauss, and Gamera vs. Virus. This was the only set that I had for a while. I think it was actually a year until I bought the Volume 2. But yeah, this was the only one I had for a while. And then later on, I got the second volume, which contains Gamera vs. Giran, Gamera vs. Jiger, Gamera vs. Zigra, and Gamera Super Monster. So, yeah, I'm going to be covering all 8 films over the next few weeks. So, let's start off this marathon with the original 1965 film, Gamera the Giant Monster. So, just really briefly talk about my history with this film. I bought the set, or this collection, I should say, and I watched the first 2 films, and then stopped watching them for quite a while. And then, you know, I've been thinking about it for a while, and then I was like, you know what, might as well do them at some point, and here we are. So this is the second time I'd watched Gamera the Giant Monster, and my thoughts. I thought that this was gonna be kind of like one of those films where the first time I saw it, it was good. The second time I watch it, it would just like over time it get worse and worse. But surprisingly, the quality of the film still is the same. I still think it's pretty good. Some parts about it kind of get transferred over to the other films, and I kind of don't like some things, which I'm gonna mention. One of the most notable things that people complain about with the Gamera films, I'm gonna be especially bringing up. But anyways, let's uh, let's get on with this. So this was made as a answer to Godzilla. Uh, the first film came out in 1954, and then the second film, because I think by this point they must have had about Godzilla had four films under his belt, which was uh, Godzilla, the original, and then Godzilla Rides Again, uh, King Kong versus Godzilla, and Mothra versus Godzilla. I think because I think the last one, before this film came out, was Mothra versus Godzilla, and that came out in 1964. So, uh, this was kind of seen at the time as a kind of like a knockoff to Godzilla, which I don't really think it is. I mean, obviously now it's gone on to be one of the most famous giant monsters of all time. Uh, but at the time, people saw it as, oh, it's just another clone of Godzilla. Let's just write it off. Um, which I think is, you know, uh, I'm glad that it's gotten that appreciation over time. That it's one of the best giant monster films, giant monster series ever. Um, but um, I think this is actually. I mean, I've heard of Godzilla before. I mean, uh, I do plan on doing all the Godzilla films at some point, but I just don't have all the films yet. So I got to get all the films at some point. Um, so I thought like I said earlier, I thought what, since I have all the original Showa Gamera films, might as well do all of them now. Instead of holding them off later, I will do the because my plan was to do all the Showa films, and then do the rest of the films by like combined together, because uh because technically if you combine the Heisei and Millennium era, that's only half of the films than the original Showa era had. So I thought, what, might as well clump all those together and do them all uh kind of all together, like not in one episode obviously, but like kind of like what I'm doing now with all these, but over a span of 2 weeks instead of four. But yeah, so this was made on a budget of 40 million yen. In terms of American money, I don't exactly know what that is, and just want to stress this right now for anyone who doesn't know, yen is the Japanese currency. Just want to stress that right now before I get any hateful comments saying that like, oh, you didn't specify. Um, but basically, this I don't know how to exactly talk about this film too much, because if I just go over the plot, right, like, because really, if I talk about the characters, there's really nothing to, especially with these giant monster films, there's nothing really to talk about with the characters most of the time, because it's just the same old generic. I mean, besides like the occasional scientist that you know comes in to save the day, and you know something like that. Like with the original Godzilla film, you can mention the scientist and how he plays such a key role in that film. With the Gamera films, besides one notable character, which I'm gonna mention later on this review, there's no real characters throughout the entire series, especially the Showa era. that really is like, oh, that character was interesting, or oh, like that character has like an interesting backstory. It's kind of just different characters with the same kind of jobs or motivations, and it kind of just gets repetitive talking about them over and over again. But again, um, there's one kind of character that I'm gonna bring up later on, and I think you guys know, if you guys are Gamera fans, you guys probably know where I'm going with this, but I'm gonna hold that off for later. But in terms of talking about the plot, in the Arctic, an unknown aircraft is shot down by an American jet, which is carrying an atomic bomb on board. Once the aircraft explodes, it awakens a giant prehistoric turtle with tusks called Gamera. Giant Japanese scientists on a nearby expedition, including Dr. Uh, Hikadai. I'm so sorry. I'm most likely going to butcher all these names, so I'm going to stress that right now. Um, uh, so So they are given an ancient tablet by an Eskimo chief who explains who Gamera is while Gamera destroys the expedition ship and escapes from the Arctic. Sightings of flying saucers seen surface in Japan. In Shigami Bay, a boy named Toshiro, played by Yushiro Yubadi, who who was forced to release his pet turtle, encounters Gamera and is saved by him from falling to his death. As Toshiro becomes attached to the monster, the military and government try to figure out how to stop Gamera once and for all. Now, this I like it because I like this plot because it's actually it's kind of similar to the original Godzilla film, while at the same time putting its own twist on it. Where I believe in the original Godzilla film, it was these people on a ship kind of dropped some like some kind of atomic bomb or something into the water, which awoke Godzilla and destroyed the ship. While in this film, it's this unknown unknown aircraft, which I mean, yeah, granted, it was carrying an atomic bomb, but little do we know, it could have just been delivering to a Japanese, airport or anywhere in the world. It could have been going, and yet at this time it's of course an American aircraft, or an American jet, sorry, that shoots it down, and that's what causes it to crash into the Arctic and awakes Gamera. So I like the fact that it kind of has its own twist on it while still being creative at the same time, where especially with the later Gamera films, it just seems like they kind of just use the same kind of plot over and over again to kind of, you know, tread the same threads as the previous film. I think really starting with Gamera versus Gauss, that's when the kind of the plots start to become very similar as the films go on. Up till Gamera versus Zigra, and then Gamera Super Monster. That's just a completely different kind of plot in general. Um, but yeah, I really think that this film is a very good monster film. But would if you try to make this kind of film today, it probably would have either had mediocre success or just flat out bombed, but had a cold following after it. This film at the time was very successful. I was not able to find out how much it made, but according to certain sites, it was a success, which caused the next film, which I'm going to be discussing later on today, Gamera vs. Barugun, to have its budget doubled for its production. So I guess that's something. Um, Again, like I said earlier, the characters really with most Japanese monster films, you don't really focus you don't really talk about them that much because they're not really that interesting except for like one or two characters. Because really, you go to see a Japanese monster film to see giant monsters fight or giant monsters destroy cities. and that's what you get in this film basically, and it's amazing. Um, and uh, but the one character that is really notable for this film and um kind of spreads up for the rest of the series up until I think like up until the last Showa era Gamera film, which I count is well Gamera Super Monster, and then with the Heisei films, um, you don't really get that, and then Gamera versus Gamera the Brave, you kind of get that, but the actual kid in that film is way more likable than any of the kids in these films. And by saying that, I think you guys know what I'm going to talk about. Yes, I'm going to talk about Toshira, which kind of sparked the whole Kenny thing with all these Gamera films. Now, I'm just gonna admit this right now, and so many people have when they talk about the Gamera films, they always hate the Kennys, and I have to agree. Most of the Kennys are fucking insufferable. They are annoying, and they literally 99% of the time, the only lines that they say is Gamera. They just scream or yell Gamera, and oh my god, it gets so repetitive after a while. Um, some notable exceptions between out of the whole entire Gamera franchise. Um, um, I think that actually this kid is even though he is the I guess the kind of like the kid that started the whole candy thing. He's actually not that bad. He actually there's only really a couple scenes where he's kind of yells Gamera, but most of the time he's just yelling at the military to not shoot a Gamera, which I can understand that. If you know, kids are gonna see this sort of thing and be like naive, but think, hey, it ain't gonna hurt anyone. So they're gonna say, hey, don't shoot at the thing. Maybe it won't hurt us if you're shooting at it. And then the military's like, no, we gotta stop him. We gotta stop this creature from destroying the city. Um, but I feel like that this kid is fine. Yeah, he does scream Gamera sometimes, but it's not every single line of dialogue that he has, which is something I can commemorate. It's like starting with Gamera versus Gauss. That's when they kind of start having the more yelling Kennys, and that's when it starts getting more insufferable. Um, but saying that, it doesn't mean that I 100% like this kid. I still think he's insufferable sometimes, but not as insufferable as later Kennys will go on. Like I said, they kind of stopped around the Heisei era. Um, I mean, the main character, I think, in the third film was a girl that saw her parents get murdered by Gamera. So, in that case, plus she doesn't scream Gamera, but that case she actually has a purpose to, be in the film instead of just screaming Gamera. And then I forgot the kid's name in Gamera the Brave, but he's like the main character basically, and he has a lot of screen time for that film. And again, like I mean, yeah, he's like, oh no, like when Gamera gets hurt in that film, he's like, no, Gamera, don't die on me. But he's not screaming Gamera like 90% of the goddamn time. Um, but yeah, just want to mention that, and I'm gonna bring this up in every single Gamera film from this point on who has a Kenny in it, or Kennys. I'm gonna keep on bringing up how annoying they are. So I might as well bring this up now since I'm gonna go on to the fun facts. Um, as most people know, this is the only Gamera film that is shot in black and white. Um, they kind of there's a lot of comparisons between the Gamera films and the Godzilla films. Um, and I'm probably gonna bring them up as the films goes on, or as the series goes on. But yeah, obviously the first comparison that people make is that in both of their respective first films, they both are shot in black and white. The original Godzilla film or Gojira was shot in black and white, and this film is also only shot in black and white. Um, Now the next film is shot in color, whereas the Godzilla series didn't immediately go into color because it was released a year after the film came out, so they were still trying to figure that out. Um, but with King Kong versus Godzilla, that's when they started shooting in color. But again, that's for later. Um, so yeah, that's really the only comparison. Excuse me. That's like really the only comparison that people make between this film and the first Godzilla films, that they were both shot in black and white, and they kind of, I think they both have. Oh yeah. Uh, the second fun fact I technically have, even though it's the first one I wrote down, is that like the first Godzilla film, this film received a heavily edited American version called Gamera the Invisible, with new scenes with American actors, and was released in December 1966. So yeah, like the first Godzilla film, this film also received in a heavily edited American version with American actors spliced into the film, and I think it, at least with the first film, the first Godzilla film, they actually it's Godzilla King of the Monsters, whereas this film it's Gamera the Invincible, and they misspelled his fucking name. So, I mean, I'll show it right here. Obviously, we all know that Gamera is spelled with one M. The gay G. I literally just said gay. Huh. Gamera. That's how you spell Gamera. How they spelled it out in the original American version was Gemmera. They added an extra M. Uh, so I don't really know why. And I think that was the version that they released several, several different releases. Actually, I think around the either the 80s or 90s, this company called, I forgot what the actual company name is, but they had a VHS line called Just for Kids Videos, and they released I believe they released all the Gamera films on VHS, and they titled the film as just Gamera. And then they had I think they moved the title sequence because in the original film, in the original Japanese film, the title sequence is, and in the first American version, with the misspelled name, they both had the credit to play over when Gamera first shows up. Um, but in the Just for Kids video version, they had the sequence, they had the title sequence played at the start of the film, and then when Gamera shows up, there's no title sequence, so you just had all these weird freaking close-ups of Gamera's body, and sometimes you like are looking at it and like, what the hell is that supposed to be? And you're like, why is there just a zoomed-in shot of his leg or something? And it's like, well, because that was where the title sequence originally was. So, my other fun fact is that in 1985, this film, the original Japanese version, along with 4 other Gamera films, which to this day I have not figured out which films they are, were acquired by Sandy Film Syndication. But while the other 4 films got English dubs, this film had no existing dub for a while until a new English dub was commissioned and recorded by Anvil Records. Which I forgot when that was. I think it was like 2011. But yeah, just to bring it back real quick, the Japanese version was not released. I think for any of the films, they weren't released with their original Japanese audio. For a while, I think until 2013 when the Shout Factory DVDs came out. Which was I think they were double features of, like, for example, like one would have Gamera the Giant Monster and then Gamera vs. Barugun, and the second set would have Gamera vs. Gals and Gamera vs. Fires, and so on and so forth. And then I kind of waited on getting those because I didn't really want to get the DVDs in case some collection came out of all the films on Blu-ray, which technically did eventually happen with with oh, there goes the mic. God damn it. Hold up. Trust me, I'm gonna get an actual proper microphone at some point. But when both of these sets came out, I tried to hunt them down as much as possible. These both came out by. I'm gonna try and zoom in, or trying to hold this as steady as possible so you get to see the company name and focus on it. But these were both released by Mill Creek Entertainment. I believe both of these sets are now out of print, so these are kind of rare. Um, so for I think about a year or two when these came went out of print for a couple years, um, no one, if you didn't buy these initially while they were still in print, uh, there was no real way you could get all these Showa Gamera films on Blu-ray for a while until Arrow Video decided, you know what? They got the license to get they got all the Gamera films, and they got. I think at this point they released the original Showa era films in one collection, and then the Heisei films in one collection. I don't know what they're gonna do with Gamera the Brave. If they even have that film in their catalog. Um, or they're just gonna release it by itself. I really wish they kind of would get all the Gamera films in one collection. Or like they would just have all the Gamera films in their catalog and be readily available. Because that's probably the next set I'm gonna get is the Gamera Heisei series, and then try and figure out if Gamera the Brave has a Blu-ray release. But so far, these are the only Gamera films that were released, or that I really have currently is all these Heisei, not the Heisei, the Showa era films. But um, but yeah. So I believe the Arrow video release have both. I know they most likely have the original Japanese audio, but I don't know if they have both the original Japanese audio and then any sort of English dub. Um, I mean, if it's just Japanese, I'll be honestly fine with that. Um, but if they have an English dub, that would be great. Um, but yeah, music. This is the only time that I'm gonna mention music for the Gamera films because honestly, I don't want to offend any Japanese, like any Asian people by butchering any of these names. So this is the only time that I'm gonna be mentioning the soundtrack, and really mostly it's kind of not too memorable to even talk about. And plus, even if I do recommend it, it's probably gonna be nearly impossible to try and find any of the soundtracks for any of these films because I don't think they're like readily available. I don't even think they were ever released in any sort of forms. So, uh, I mean, if you want to try and look it up, that's fine. But I highly doubt that there's ever a soundtrack release for any of these films that were released. But the music for this film was composed by uh, Tadashi. Uh, okay, yeah, I'm not even gonna try and pronounce the name, but the music for this film is fine. Um, it's very, to me, it's kind of generic, giant monster kind of music, which, um, you know, I mean, it's fine, but it's, again, it's kind of just like generic giant monster music, so it can be used really anywhere. Um, but yeah. So, final thoughts on Gamera the Giant Monster. I think it's a good start to the Gamera series. Um, and I think that if this film was a flop, you know, I think some of the sequels are definitely better than the original. But really, uh, if this film was a flop and we had no other sequels to it, I mean, Graham, I feel like, granted, this film does end on a cliffhanger note, kind of, where they capture Gamera and they launch him into space, and it's kind of like, oh, is he gonna return or not? So I guess it would kind of leave the if this film didn't succeed, it kind of leave the audience on kind of a cliffhanger note. But even then, it's kind of not really a cliffhanger ending, but whatever. This film was a success, and as obviously shown, it had tons of sequels and remakes released. So I'm perfectly fine with that. So I'm gonna give this film a B. So anyway, guys, stay tuned for later on today, and I'm gonna be discussing Gamera versus Barugun, which is the sequel, obviously, to this film, and it's the first film in the series where Gamera fights another monster. So, anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this film or this review, and stay tuned for later on today, where I'm going to be discussing Gamera versus Barugun. Live long and prosper. Out.